Hello, everyone. Today, you are welcome to this class, and yeah, we taking up from where we stopped in the last class. So, our previous class, we discussed arrays. We discussed that an array is a way to store multiple values inside a single variable, and we did some practicals. We I did some illustration. I I presented how to create an array, discuss array index, and looked at some methods in an array and some properties in an array. We discussed that an array is a kind of an object and it has methods and it has properties like length. And we looked at some ways of creating arrays. We looked at some methods in an array like the push to add an item to an array on shift. We also discussed pop. We discussed shift as well. Okay, so today we'll be looking at other methods of an array. Okay, so we'll look at methods like loop, some method that can help you loop through the elements of an array. And we'll also look at looping through the elements of an array. So since an array has multiple elements, multiple members, there is a way you can go through each and every one of them. All right. So in the last class, I think we looked at for loop, using for loop to go through an array. Well, here in this class, we'll be doing that with some array methods. There are some dedicated array methods to help you go through the elements of an array. And one of those array methods is the for each method. So let's look at what for each does. Let's say we have an array. Let's declare an array. The var fruits, array of fruits. So let's say we have apple here. Let's say we have orange here. Let's say we have purple. So we have these four fruits as the elements of this array. So usually we can use a for loop to go through this, but there is a dedicated method of an array that can help you go through each method of an array and print them out. Possibly you can also do some manipulations and also add some other styles to it. But the basic way to implement this method is this way for each. This is the name of the method for each. Okay. So inside this for each, the parameter will pass into this for each is a function, and that function would run for each element of this array. So that function takes a parameter. So let's say a function like this array. So inside here we put a function. So the function takes a parameter, and that parameter would represent the value of the array members. So let's say for instance we have value this way. So remember I said that this function will be called for each element of the array. So it will be called for the first element, second element, to the last one. So when it's called for the first element, the value that will be passed in will be the value of the first element. And it's called for the second element, the value that will be passed in will be the value of the second element until the last element. So let's say here there's log console log value. So around this, sorry, oh sorry, made a mistake. Look at it here. Fruit is not defined. The name of my array is fruits, not fruits. So run it so you can see it. We have apple. In the first time, it was passed as an argument to this array apple, and then second time it was orange, purple, and mango. So this is how array for each works. For each method of an array, this is how it works. So you can try it at your end, get an array and go through them, have you can log them out, you can do anything with them. All right. So let's say for instance that we have another array. Let's say for scores. Let's say you have this as the score of a particular class. So the first person scored 100, second person 50, third person 70, fourth person 80. So let's say we want to go through this each of the score and print out double of it. All right. So we can, since we want to go through each of them, and then for each one we want to print double. That's multiplied by 2. So one way to go through the element of an array and perform an operation on each of the elements is true for each. So we do score dot for each. Okay. Remember, we're passing a function, and this function takes an argument called value, and then so we're going to define whatsoever we want to carry out on each of the elements of the array on inside this function. So what we want to do is I want to say, okay, for the first one, var double is equal to this value here is more like the function argument, but um, our JavaScript would pass in the values in each of the indexes gradually to get to the end. All right, so JavaScript will invoke this function with the elements of this array, starting from the first one to the last one. Okay, so console.log double. Okay, so run this. Have the first one 200, 100, 140, 160. So that's how for each works. That's how to implement for each in JavaScript array. Let's try another one. So the next method that I want us to try out is includes. Includes, and this is how what it does. So includes will help us check if an item exists in an array. So we want to know if a particular item exists in an array. Okay, so this is also a way of doing a search in an array. So we want to check if the fruits array, let's check if the fruits array contains mango. So we'll say fruits that includes, put in, this is case sensitive, so this is capital a letter M, we must maintain it capital. If it's not capital, it will return false. So this returns a boolean, either true or false, and we can save the value in a variable. Let's say is mango. Is mango present? That's the name of our variable. And let's log out our variable. Console log, can put in text is mango present. Or we can just put a comma to our variable. Is mango present? Yeah, so let's run it. So we have is mango present true. Can you see that? If we reduce this small letter m, it's false because it does a case sensitive search. Does a case sensitive search. This will give us true for this mango, and we can try it out for every other elements of this array just to know if they exist. Okay, so we can also do index of. Remember, I told you the last time that each element of an array has an index assigned to them. Okay, so the first one here has index 0. The index number starts reading from 0. So the second has index 1, 2, and 3. So let's say we want to check for the let's say we want to check the index of orange. The orange index. We say fruits dot index. Index of both orange. Remember, has to be case, maintain the case. So we can say console log orange is in index, can do plus add it. You can see it is in index 1 because this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. So we can also try it for other members of the array. Okay, so we also have many other methods of an array. Let's try out another one. Let's try this one. Let's try index dot. Let's try map. What does map do? So let's say, for instance, that you want to create a new array from an existing array. You want to create a new array from an existing array. Let's say you want to manipulate a new array and create an existing array to it. What do we? Let's say, for instance, we have this array. Let's say we have an array of okay, let's say the array of score here. Instead of just listing out all the double of this array, where we listed them out here, you want to create another array that contains an array of elements where the elements here are double of the matching index of the elements in this one. Let's take for instance what I mean. You want to create an array where the first one will be double of 100, second one will be double of 50, third one double of 70, and it continues. So the array will be like an array containing the double of the first one. So instead of just listing them out, we will have them here. We just listed them out. We'll create an array that contains these. Okay, so we do that with array.map. So let's say score double score. That's the name of our array. I want to create it from score here. So now do score.map. Map is the name of the method that does this. And it takes a function as an argument. Alright. The function takes So the function takes an argument which is the value of each index here, the value of each array index. So if it runs the first time, it will be 100, second time, it will be 50 until it gets to the end. So right now, we'll do return. So what happens here is that anything we return at the end of executing the function would be what the what JavaScript will take as the value for that particular index. So if we are running for the first, because it starts running from it runs the function for each of the values here, right? So when we run it for the first value, which is 100, we'll do our computation. Anything we return is what JavaScript will take as the first element of this new array. Okay. If in the second iteration, anything we return is what JavaScript will take as the second element of this new array. Remember, we have a new array, and this new array will be created from this array based on the manipulation we perform on this array, and the return value determines what will be returned as the value of each index in the array. So right now, what we want to do is I want to multiply each of these value by 2 and return it. So what we'll be returning now is the value. Remember, this value would be substituted by the value of the indexes in this array when JavaScript start executing the function. So I have these asterisks 2. So this will want to return. So let's log out console.log double sorry double score. Then we run it. Shit, what's that? Unexpected token. This. Double score. Trying to figure out what happened to this code. We have this is a function. Oh shit. No, I made a mistake. Okay, you can see it. Alright, so you can see this is a new array. 200, 100, 140, 160. So that's how array method works. Okay. So we also have another method called filter. Okay, so filter also returns a new array, but this new array is not exactly the same as the map method. Okay, so how does filter work? Let's say, for instance, that we want to sort out the odd numbers in an array and put them in a different array. So we have odd numbers and we have even numbers. So in the array element. So filter helps you to create a new array of that match a particular condition. So you're going to pass a condition to the you're going to pass a condition uh, to the function, and if the condition returns true, filter will save that particular uh, element. If it doesn't return true, filter will not save it. So whatsoever operation you want to run, once it returns true, filter will take it and put in the array in the new array. So look at what I mean. So we have the array of scores, and we want to have var even scores from this score. So we use score.filter. The same thing that happens in other methods. A function will be passed to this, and this function will be called for each element of the array. But what happens in this case is that if this function returns true, that particular element will be returned into this new array, will be saved into this new array. But if it doesn't return true, it will not be saved. So how do we know that an element is even? An element is even, a number is even if it returns zero when you divide it by two, right? So we are going to use the modulo operator. So if we divide this number by two, so we're going to put value here. I'm sorry, this is maths, but you don't always have to do maths. Sometimes you can work without the math, but just need the basic maths. So if we say var remainder is equal to value mod 2. So what this does is that, remember what mod 2 does. Mod 2 is that if you divide an element by a number, the remainder is what will be returned. For instance, if we say 5 divided by 2, we'll get it 2 remainder 1, right? If we say 5 divided by 2, we'll get 2 remainder 1. So if we say 5 mod 2, it will be, well, since we got remainder 1, 5 mod 2 will be 1. So that remainder that is left whenever you divide it, whenever you divide the denominator, use the denominator divide the numerator, is what we get as the mod. So whenever you divide any even number by 2, it always remain the remainder is always 0, right? So we can use that as a logic. So if we do this value divided by 2 mod 2, it should have a remainder of 0. So whenever this value mod 2 is 0, it means that the number is even. So we'll return remainder if remainder is equal to 0. Remember, this is a comparison sign comparing these two. So if what we have as remainder here is 0, it means 0 is equal to 0, and that will be true. Okay, so let's console.log even scores. So we can do even scores. So when we run it, you can see, okay, our even scores, all of them are even. So let's add more numbers. Let's say we have 25, 30, 1, 15 in this array. Run it. So it returns the even one. Let's do for odd numbers. Let's do for odd numbers. So the same thing, var odd numbers is equal to score, the same array dot filter. We pass in the function argument the function parameter, and this function takes an argument value. Then inside this, you're going to do an operation that will determine whether something is even or not. So let's still copy this and put here. But the difference is that the remainder will not be equal to 0. The remainder this time will be greater than 0. So if the remainder is greater than 0, it's an odd number, so it will return true. Yeah, so let's console the log even numbers and odd numbers. So we divide the array into two right now, even and odd. So let's run it. So you have odd scores, and the odd scores are here, and have even scores, and the even scores are here. Right? Believe you're following. If you have any question, please kindly drop it on the chat box. We'll have to attend to your questions. Right now, let's look at other methods. We have reduce. So reduce is used to combine all the um, elements of an array into one. Okay, so let's say for instance we want to get the sum of all the elements of the score array. So reduce can be used to combine all of them into one. Okay, so let's say we have total total of the scores here. Score dot reduce. It also takes a function, and the function takes two arguments, a and b. So the reduce function takes two arguments. The first one is a function, and the second one is the initial value. So what do you want to be the initial value? The initial value can be 1, it can be 0. So because we want to get the sum of all this array, if we put the initial value as 1, it would mean that we are going to get an extra 1 at the end, because this will be the first value that will be added. So let's use 0. So what we are doing is that we'll do a return a plus b. So a represents the initial value, and b represents the previous uh, sum, and then b represent the current sum. For instance, when we say in the first element, which is 100, sorry, which is 100. So when it's running the first element, a will be equal to this 0 here, because b represent the current element. So b will be equal to 100. So it will be 0 plus 100, right? Then 0 plus 100 will give us what? 100. Once we are done, a will now become 100, which is the previous sum, and b will now become the next element, which is 15. So it will now be a plus b is 100 plus 15. That's 115. A will now become 150, which is the previous sum, and B will now become the current element, which is now 50. So it will be 115 by plus 50, which is 100 and what? 65. And this is how it will continue until we get to the end. And when we get to the end, by the end of it, it must have accumulated all the values into one. Right? So let's log out total. All right. Let me make it total then we'll run it. Can see total is 371. That's how this one works. So there are different other things you can do in an array. You can put an array inside an array, okay, and you can do many things in an array, okay. So You can put an object inside an array. You can put an array inside an array. So we can have an array of arrays. We can have an array of objects. We can have array, let's say students, var students. And each student has its own property. So the first element of this array will be the first student, second element, second student, third element, third student. So the first student may have properties like name, you can say prince, you can say department, say computer science. This is the first. This is the first student. This is the second student. This is the third student. And these are all elements of this array. So you can do something like name for the second student. You can say or department, sorry, let me use this, department economics. Can go for this second, the last one, name, joy. Sorry. Department, physics. So now we have 3 elements of an array. The same way we access elements of an array, the same way we access this. So let's say var student 1, sorry, is a variable, is equal to student zero. You use the index to get it. So if you do console.log student 1, you can see it returns it. If we change it to 1, it will return the second element of the array, which is an object. Or we make it 2 to return the third element of the array. Remember, the indexes start counting from 0. Indexes start counting from 0. MX, right? And then we can access different, let's say we want to access the department of the second student, that is the index 1, or the department of the first student, which is index 0. You can say student 1 dot, the same way we access, because this will not return an object, we access it as an object dot department. Seen it? Computer science. Makes a lot of sense. We can have arrays inside arrays. They're called multi-dimensional arrays. Okay, so how do you put it now? Let's say we have scores for different subjects for different students. Okay, you can say var score, and an array can be inside an object. An object can be inside an array. They all coexist inside each other. Let's say scores. This is subjects offered by each student. For instance, you have an array, and the first one is the subject offered by the first student is an array. The second one an array. Third one, an array. So you can say the first one offers English, and then mathematics, and then chemistry. Let's also copy it. Let's say instead of chemistry, let's have biology. Sorry. And then here for the third students, can have physics. It works that way. Okay. Now, the same way we access arrays, you can do console.log subjects. The first element is 0. When we run it, you can see it. So if you want to get the second element of the first element, which is what? Mathematics. So because this whole stuff returned an array, we also query it as an array. So we put another box here and put 1. You can see it, we return mathematics. That's how it works. Okay, that's how it works. So if you have any question, feel free. The community link is in the description of this video. So feel free to submit your question in the community and we'll answer your question. Okay, please don't pay any attention to anybody chatting you, misrepresenting any of our staffs or any of the 2000 subs in it or our founder, our CEO. Earlier today, there was a message sent across to some persons, and someone was impersonating the CEO. Right? We've also circulated a notice to everyone within our reach, informing them that we don't have any association, neither of any kind, neither do we know this person carrying out this operation. And if you in any way uh, discover or have any way to know this person, please kindly report to us. And if anyone tries to send you a message, please ignore the message as long as it's not coming from us. We don't know them. Kindly ignore the message and report to us, report to WhatsApp, or report to any authority within the platform where the message was sent. Okay? So thank you so much. We'll do our best to keep you notified and also keep you secured as we progress in this training. Thank you so much.